The following program is being presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of ALC-TV or the City of Avon Lake.
Welcome to Common Sense. Common Sense is a series of shows that feature interviews with interesting people so that we can learn in a clear, concise, and direct way who these folks are, what they do, and what makes sense to them and what doesn't. I'm Rudy Breglia, and today I'll be interviewing the knowledgeable, skilled, talented, and wonderful Linda Kelly. She is a community activist and former campaign manager for a U.S. Senate candidate. Welcome to Common Sense, Linda.
Rudy, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, to start us off, where were you born? Where have you lived? What brought you to this part of Ohio?
Well, I've always lived in this part of Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. I lived briefly when I was born in Kent, Ohio, but my family's lived in Lakewood and Rocky River. And then when I was married, we lived in Bay Village, Upper Arlington, Akron, and I now live in Medina.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
pretty much, yeah, this is my stomping ground.
Yeah. Well, to start off seriously, tell us about the Ohio Constitution.
Okay. The Ohio Constitution, or any constitution, is a fundamental legal document that is the framework for the state or the national governance and outlines the rights of the citizens.
Okay. How many times has the Ohio Constitution been changed or amended?
172.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You knew that number right off the bat.
Right.
In general, what were some of the major changes and when did they occur?
Okay. The most recent major change was the casino amendment in 2009.
Okay.
And it allowed for a casino in Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Toledo on specific properties. And it's very specific about the casino industry. Came in to get that done.
Understand. What voter approval percent is needed currently to amend or change the Constitution?
That's interesting. It's 50% plus one.
Okay.
Which I'd like to say a little more about that.
Okay.
Because people say 50% plus one's democracy, whatever. What it means is 50% plus one vote.
All right.
Plus one vote.
Okay.
So if you have a country that's totally, the votership is totally divided on an issue.
Okay, 50-50.
50-50, it takes one person to flip that.
Okay.
And then everybody lives by it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, it's an interesting perspective. What is needed to change the U.S. Constitution, just as a parallel?
Okay. Well, that's only been amended 17 times.
Okay.
And it's a lot longer than ours. What has to happen there is you have to have 2/3 of the Senate and the House agree to an amendment.
Okay.
Then it goes to the states.
Okay.
And 75% of the states have to say yes.
So a tougher threshold for the U.S. Constitution.
And the interesting thing is you're talking about a constitution. You're not talking about a law.
Okay.
So that's why it should be harder.
Yep. it's basic foundation. You don't
Right.
change the foundation of a house very often. right?
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. What's going to be on the Ohio ballot in August or on August 8th special election? Well, what's going to be on that ballot?
Okay, there's an amendment to change what it takes to change the Constitution. Currently, as you said, and we talked about, it's 50% plus one vote, one person, one vote. What it's going to be changed to 60%.
Okay.
To put an amendment on the Constitution. Again, Rudy, not a law, an amendment to change the Constitution.
Okay.
60%. And then also, currently, if you're going to put an amendment on, you only have to go around to 44 of the 88 counties. So you can ignore the small counties when you want to change
I
the
see.
cultural structure of the
Okay.
state, but now you'd have to go to all 88 counties.
Okay. So even the smaller counties are going to be represented and have
Exactly.
to have a certain level of voting and
Exactly.
and that's issue one, right?
That's issue one. And it's the only thing on the August election.
Okay. Is voting on initiatives or referendums, is that affected by issue one, or are they without effect on that?
The only, it raises what the passage needs to be. It's the same.
Okay.
But it does not, and this is some of the scare tactics that are out, it does not remove the citizens' ability to put an initiative on the ballot. And we happen to be, this is one of the things we're good at. I think we might get into one of the things we're bad at. But one of the things we're good at is that we're one of 18 states that allows citizens to put an initiative on the ballot.
Okay.
And that will not change. That is still the same.
Still happen.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the primary benefits for elevating the voter approval percent from a simple majority, 50 plus 1, to 60% as indicated in issue 1 for a constitutional amendment?
Well, I think one of the big benefits is, and this is one of the things where not a good part of our state, we are one of 14 out of 50 that allows an amendment to be passed by 50%.
Okay.
So it's not like we are an outlier on this, on the the good side.
Okay.
We're an outlier on the bad side.
Okay.
So that 50% makes us target rich.
Okay.
If you look that, if you're going to be an outside organization that wants to, and what we're getting into now in our culture, in our country, is outside organizations with a social agenda.
Okay.
They're going to bring big money into a state that is where it's easy. If you only need 50% plus one person,
Right.
you're going to go there
Okay.
and bring your change to that social culture.
Right.
And
It doesn't
so-
need widespread support, so
No.
it just needs 50% plus 1.
Yeah. And I want to go in, I give an example of how important it is to raise that rate by what happened in the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
For example, we've only had 17 amendments. The first 10 are the Bill of Rights.
Right.
But then we've had 17. 2 of those amendments were, we want prohibition. Bad idea. We don't want it. Okay. So let's look at how the process to put that in and then the process to take it out. Put it in. They started in December of 1917. I think prohibition would be a good idea.
Yeah.
And it took us till January of 1919 to go through that process that we talked about. 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the state. And so by 1920, January, bingo, prohibition. Well, we know what that kind of chaos that made, right? Not so good. Uh-oh. It wasn't that we made a bad law. We made an amendment. So now we have to change it by the amendment process. It took 13 years. 13
Even
years.
though it was a big mistake, it's still...
Even though it was a big mistake, it turned 13 years. So that's why if you have a 50% threshold and it's an amendment, not a law, an amendment, and it's 50% plus one person, wouldn't you hate to be that one person
Yeah.
that voted for a bad law?
True.
I wonder if you could identify that. But anyway, so that's why it's not so good.
Okay. You have the law of unintended consequences
Right.
Taking effect.
So you want to make your state safeguard against outside interests bringing in, and what we're seeing now, Rudy, is social issues that they cannot get in through the legislature. They're circumventing the legislature
Okay.
and bringing these social interests as an amendment.
And they can do it because you only have a threshold of 50%
Plus one vote, plus one person.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
who is behind issue one? And I think the viewers are going to see a slide, at least for the pro-life organizations. I know there are other organizations.
Right. Pro-lifers are behind it. The Association of Builders and Contractors is behind it. Buckeye Firearms is behind it. Many of the ag organizations are behind it. Focus on the Family recently came out behind it.
Okay.
Ohio Value Voters is behind it. Center for Christian Virtues is behind it. Protect Women Ohio is behind it.
I think Chamber of Commerce is
Chamber
behind
of Commerce is behind it. The Independent Business Owners Association is behind it. So you notice these are associations that are pro-life, pro-family, pro-business, which is pro-employers, pro-liberty. That is behind this issue one.
Okay. Now, I think we talked about this a little bit. Why do transient, well-financed, and out-of-state special interests want to hijack the Ohio constitutional voter amendment process? And I think we talked about that already a little bit.
Well, I think it's important, before we go there, if you don't mind,
Okay.
to go to who is the no. All these
Okay,
signs you see,
the other side of the
no.
coin, yeah.
Because I've seen on my neighborhood thread, oh, you have to vote no because we're going to be a communist party. I mean, I saw that the other day. This Chinese will be communist party if you vote no. Well, who is in the no side? On the no side is the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, Black Lives Matter, the Democrat Socialist Party, the Sierra Club, the Reproductive Physicians Group, because they have a lot of benefit in what's coming up in November. Blackout and Proud, NARAL. So these groups that are no, it's interesting, and I've not said anybody who's a person, because I think the voter should look at, all right, what are the facts to make my decision? Not
Okay.
because so-and-so said this, okay, I'm that. That makes a lazy voter.
Yeah,
It makes
that's
a
true.
lazy voter. That's why
true.
I'm glad you're doing this. People should do the research to know what it is. So I'm highlighting the organizations that are pro and that are negative. And if you notice from that list of people that I said that are negative, they are, the government is God and the government should decide for you. They're very
Okay.
into controlling. So that's really what this is about. And I'd like the people, we have a bigger list and we have a website, Grassroots Freedom Initiative Ohio, gfiohio.com/issue 1.
Okay.
We have all kinds of videos and papers and research. It's going to be on this side, but you should have facts. It's facts.
Have them be
Yeah.
informed.
Informed.
Okay. Now,
So back to what you, I'm sorry, I interrupted what your question was.
okay.
I think,
What I was getting at with my question is, why do these special interest groups do this? Is it just because they want to control folks, get control of the Constitution for their specific aims?
I would say yes. What's changed a lot in our country is our country's divided.
Oh, you bet.
It's divided, and everybody would say that. It's divided. And so it is harder to get things through the legislature.
Okay.
So special interest groups have a lot of money.
Okay.
And they can come in and they can go around the legislature with the amendment process, and they can get, I think it's 5 people, citizens, to sponsor their amendment. If you go and you look up if we're going to talk about the November election, at the bottom of that reading, it has the 5 people they got, and then boom, they're in there with big money. What they do is they get, and this is the November ballot, this current August has been putting on by the legislature.
Okay.
The November's put on by,
Some
special
group.
interests. Yeah, not the legislature. And not really even Ohio people that have said, we need voter ID. It's not that. It is Planned Parenthood and ACLU. I don't want to get too far ahead of time. But so you have people with a lot of money. They come in and they pay people to get signatures. They pay people $20 an hour to get signatures. I've talked to some of the people that were getting signatures and brought up things that are in the signatures. Do you really agree with that? And you know what they said to me, Rudy? We don't agree that's in there. I said, well then,
Why are you doing
why are you doing this? Because I'm getting paid $20.
Paid, yeah, there you go.
That's it.
There you go.
And so it goes around the legislature, and then the same people have beaucoup money to make ads that show that you're cutting up the Constitution. And people go, oh my gosh, they're cutting the Constitution.
Scary.
We're going to be communists.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah, so that's sort of the thing.
Okay. Now, so there is a way for them to turn this into a way of enriching themselves. Is that what the special interests do? I think Planned Parenthood, they have a special way of enriching themselves.
Oh, well, this goes into the November amendment.
Okay.
That November amendment, and they're tied together.
Okay.
Because the people that sponsored the November amendment want a 50% plus 1 voter. And when you look at what they want, it's like, we will be a very divided state. Not only that, the culture in our state will be very demonized,
Yep.
if I could say that.
Okay. All right.
Because the amendment that's coming in November, should we go to that?
Yeah,
Volunteer or-
my next question was going to be, why is it particularly important for issue 1 to be decided
Okay.
with that 60%?
Well, before the November, I think there's a reason that should be divided, and it's the increase to 60%, and it's because of the division in our country.
Okay.
There was an article in U.S. News and World Report in February of 2020, which was 3 years ago, that asked how many, they did 32 countries, and they said, how many of you believe that your elections are legit or not fraught with?
Okay.
Okay, so across the nation, United States came in 30 out of 32 with 59% of the people in Ohio, that's Republicans, Democrats, Independents, saying, yeah, I think there's a problem with our election. And if you look at the election 2016, if you were a Hillary voter, you thought there was a problem with the election. In 2020, if you were a Trump voter, you thought there was a problem with the election.
Okay.
So lay over that a big social issue like abortion
Okay.
and let it be decided by 50-50 and one person. Then the whole state lives with it. It needs
Yeah.
to be higher.
Okay.
And it isn't going to take us into communism. It'll take us into, well, you have to make your case.
Right. Widespread support.
Widespread support in all the counties and with just 10% more of the people. It's not like 75% that you have with the US Constitution, which would be 25% more of the people, just 10% more.
Okay.
And once they get these going, and once they get a victory in some of these social things, like in Michigan, they just passed this, what is our November Amendment light, and I'll tell you why later, but it was just the abortion part. They got the victory. Okay, they feel empowered. Now what's going through their Senate and their House is, if you don't use the pronouns that I want you to use, then you can be fined and put in jail.
Wow.
That's a wow. That's a wow.
Dramatic.
It is. But other things, just think of the social issues that can come down the road on either side. And on either side should consider, you know, do I really want what could come my way with 50% plus one person?
Another prohibition.
Another prohibition. It's a lot of green things, you know.
Understand.
It's just amazing.
Okay.
What it could be.
Well, go on. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I want to go back to the other question here so
Okay.
you can fire it again.
Okay, all right. Well, why, and my question was going to be, why is having a higher threshold for voter approval particularly important for this year's November election? That
Okay.
was the question.
Okay. The November election is an amendment. It went through the citizen process, which I told you about the paid solicitors. It's currently being evaluated. I think it will probably make the threshold.
Okay,
And it will be on it. It was written by the ACLU.
okay,
It is very vague
Yeah.
in its languaging. And we'll go into some of the vagueness.
okay,
It's very vague, so it looks very vanilla. And that's on purpose. Because every word is a contract. So if it's passed, it's a gotcha. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be like a home run with the bases loaded. Because they took what they were able to do in Michigan and thought, all right, we're going to go for the gold. Their agenda, you go up on their website, the ACLU website, their agenda since 1975 has been to decriminalize sex work and make it they feel, as legitimate as it should be.
okay.
I don't think 50% of the people plus one vote agree with that, right? And it doesn't say that. But I'll show you where it does say it, okay? But by not saying it.
All right. So
Okay.
vaguely worded are the key words.
It's vaguely worded.
And what I was going to say is, in the November, if the November, and I'm calling it the reproduction amendment passes, although it has other applications, what will happen to the rights for parental notification and consent for abortion procedures and irreversible genital surgeries on their children? In other words, what happens to parental rights if this amendment passes?
Gone. Done.
Completely. Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why. It's just the languaging, as best as I can remember. And if not, I'll have to look at my notes. But it says an individual, which would be a man, a woman, an adult, a child, an individual, and we're doing reproductive rights and we're talking about individual on purpose, has the right to make their own reproductive decisions. So there's no age limit on that.
Yeah, right.
And nobody can prohibit them.
Interfere with that, you know.
Nobody. So if for nothing else, I would vote no in November just for the parental rights. And you have to think, how wicked is the person that's putting this through? And you don't look at that. It's not obvious.
Yeah,
Okay, so nobody can interfere with your reproductive rights.
right. And when you think of the harm that could come from children doing irreversible things to themselves with no guidance from their parents, it's just horrible the way it could work out.
Well, they're doing it before they have a job, before they drive, before they can do anything. They can't get a tattoo, but they can decide they want to change their gender. The other thing that does, that you can't interfere with somebody's reproductive decisions, is if a woman says, I want to have sex for pay, and that's my reproductive choice, you can't do anything about it.
Can't interfere with that. Yeah, it would.
So it accomplishes their 1975 agenda.
Okay. So you're changing the culture, the values of the society.
Oh, totally. Oh, totally. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the November amendment passes, again, that reproduction amendment, can abortions take place right up to birth?
Yes. And here's how they word it. Abortions may be not after viability, but, and can I read the
Yeah, go ahead
word?
and read it.
Because I think this is really important. It's really important. It says, however, abortions may be prohibited after fetal viability. It does not say won't be prohibited. May be prohibited, but in no case, that's no means no and no means no, may such an abortion be prohibited if, in the professional judgment of the pregnant patients, doesn't say woman, pregnant patients, treating physician who's in the abortion business, it is necessary to protect the pregnant patient's life or health. And health, my mental, my emotional, my financial health.
Right.
So,
leaves it wide open.
Oh, yes. So we have an abortion doctor whose patient comes and says, this is my mental health. I can't have this baby. Oh, okay. We'll take care of that. So that's why I'm saying, Rudy, it's a home run. Mm-hmm. You have a gender confusion, you have prostitution, and you have abortion.
Okay.
All without parental consent.
You used the word before, diabolically clever.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. You know.
Another thing, we've all seen the movie, or if you haven't, you should, Sound of Freedom.
Okay.
There have been 85,000 children that have come across this border, unaccompanied minors, that have disappeared. We don't know where they are. Where are they? A sex trafficker of children can now take them to an abortionist because it's their decision. They don't have to be the parent. So that's what I'm saying. This is a home run with the bases loaded.
Okay.
And you imagine what it would do to the culture of our state, what it would attract to our state, what it would attract to the family life of our state. Really. And that will be the case if they only get 50% plus one.
Understand. If if abortion restrictions are completely eliminated, will abortion become a routine contraceptive method, and will infanticide become the next step? That's
Well, as a woman who's had 2 children, and I don't understand why you would open yourself up to have abortion be your birth control. I mean, we live in a country and a society where there's so many more options to avoid getting pregnant. I don't understand why abortion would be your choice. But it looks like as people are celebrating their abortion, it has become that way. It's almost become cool to get an abortion.
okay.
But we're not interviewing women that had that and that really wasn't what they said. They don't tell you the pain and the horrible of these just go home and take these pills. That is not put out, but just this is so easy and it's your right. And this amendment, by the way, Rudy, would make it a right, not a law. Roe v. Wade was a law,
Yeah.
overturned. Amendment is a right. It would make it a right to abort your child. So I don't understand why people choose that, but yes, with there no restrictions, that's what they do. And if we have partial birth abortion, which these laws, you can say, hey, tomorrow I'm supposed to have the baby, but I don't think so. They partially birth that baby and then shove a scissors up into their brain. That's infanticide. Because that baby, if that head got out, could breathe and maybe do amazing things, have an amazing life. So
Understand.
I just see it that we've gone down a road where we've desensitized people.
Pretty sad.
I mean, people don't want to see what an aborted baby looks like. If you think it's okay, in my opinion, you should see it. You should see what you're thinking is okay.
Understand.
Because there are 2 lives here. One of them can't speak. And that's all those right to life people are speaking for those children. I have a friend that every time we do the Pledge of Allegiance, with life and liberty for all, and they end with born and unborn.
Okay.
Just think
Knights of Columbus say that as well.
of how many of our citizens we have eliminated before they've had a chance.
60 million.
60 million.
Okay. Well, in summary,
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. What's making sense to you and what doesn't?
Well, in summary, what makes sense is to make it harder to be a target, to bring social agendas. Because we're in a war in our country with social agendas. That's where the war is. And Ohio, at 50% plus 1 person, is target rich to run that through. And we're a fairly populated state, so people say, look, they did it in Ohio, so it makes us a testimony for that.
Right,
I
right.
don't want to be a testimony for that. And it gives everybody an opportunity to speak. It doesn't eliminate some people in our country. And it gives every citizen still the option to bring an amendment on. It does not eliminate that.
Okay.
And I don't get, one of the things too, Rudy, that I'm hearing, I lose my vote. No, you don't. You go in and vote. You still vote. You still vote. It does not take away your right to put an amendment on, nor does it take away your vote. So it's pretty simple. It just makes it so that as we're wading into territories with people that don't get into government but want to change it by buying their agenda, we're sort of making it harder for them to
Okay.
do that. And we should, because they do that and then they leave our state and we're left with the consequences. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yes, yes. We need a constitution that's stable, enduring, and strong.
It's sort of like if suddenly you were used to leaving your car unlocked in the driveway, and there are all kinds of cars being stolen in your neighborhood. Would you say, hey, I'm just cool with leaving my car unlocked? No, you would lock it. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're putting a safety lock on our amendment. And it's not outrageous. It's not 75%.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. I would pitch out there for people to consider. There isn't anything that I've said that's not factual. Everything I've said is a fact. I encourage people to fact check it.
Okay.
So I am not saying untruths. On the commercial, we are not shredding our Constitution, and we are not denying anybody the right to vote. So you have to think, why are you putting out that false information? Because you can't put out the truth. And fear. And I say, fear, you are a liar.
Okay.
I would say that. And I would just, if you think we're coming to the end, I would say what Ben Franklin said.
Good words.
You have a republic if you can keep it.
Okay.
And we're trying to keep it. We're trying to keep Ohio a family-friendly, child-safe state that has a good culture.
Okay.
Circling back just a minute, this is just coming to me. I think Ohio is number 4. Fact checkers, go and check it as much as you want. It's really close in child trafficking.
Okay.
So you add this mix to it.
Dynamite.
Dynamite. I mean, I think that if that happens and you're an entrepreneur, make some really cool leashes for your kids, because I would not let my children out of my sight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm serious about that.
Okay. Understand. Well, thank you, Linda. And thank you for watching. Please let us know if you would like to appear on the show, or if you have interesting people that would like to appear. Please send us their contact information. Our emails will appear on the bottom of the screen. Please ask us any questions or make any comments that you'd like to make. And remember, seatbelts save lives.
The preceding program was presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of ALC TV or the City of Avon Lake.